Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to AI Pro Plus, the Transfer Roundup show. It's me, Guy. I am stepping in, hopefully just for the first show over Trev, but he is dealing with something at the minute, but hopefully it's just the one show with me. But I'm joined by Dave. How are you doing, Dave?
Yeah, all good, cheers.
I should have asked before we start recording, do you prefer Dave or David?
Nah, go with Dave, definitely.
Go with Dave. Right, there's too many Daves on AI, I always got to mix it up. But this is the transfer show. There's only one place to start, really, and that is Darwin Nunez. We got the Paul Joyce tweet earlier on this afternoon. So, we've got the payment structure, Dave, but it's happened almost very quickly, but also very slowly with the last couple of days where nothing's really happened.
Yeah, it's weird. Depending on who you probably follow on Twitter, if you've been looking at the sort of Portuguese, the Uruguayan journalist, then technically the deal's been done about 85,000 times.
Yes.
However, the big ones, let's be honest, the big ones we know. We've been waiting for Joyce, Dom King to really confirm it. And it's sort of 1:00 today. It's broken, hasn't it? The 64 million up front, just shy of 13 on appearances for an add-on, and then further add-ons of 8.5 million based on the team's success. So we kind of got what we wanted to know, the big story breaking. Interestingly enough as well, 6-year contract, which is quite a big thing that's probably worth chatting about shortly. I think the things I loved, especially because, let's be honest, we all read Joyce's articles, they're the big ones. Van Dijk and Klopp keen having conversations with him. So said even during those Benfica, I think, quarterfinals, whenever it was, they were having chats with Darwin then about moving to Liverpool, which is kind of not shell-shocking, but it's pretty good to hear that they had already sort of planted that seed. He was already in their thoughts. I think the other big things you took from the article, despite the big money, he's not going to be a top earner, intimating it's pretty much going to be around the same as what another Liverpool forward who we'll talk about is on. And the style of the deal, that 6-year contract, so that over 6 years, 12.5 million amortized onto the account. That's pretty big, really. I know it's weird to talk about the finances, but it's big in terms of we can still spend. It's not like we've just got to find a huge lump sum straight away. It's that spread over the 6 years that way. Still interesting things that can happen. I mean, I saw someone tweeted earlier, please don't be another Fekir, because he has had 3 serious knee injuries. So it'll be interesting to see how we deal with the medical side that way. But probably the one favourite thing that broke, I think it was yesterday, was my favourite thing. The stories the United journalists tried to put out that United wanted the player, but they didn't want to get into a bidding war with us. It's like, well, funnily enough, I'd like Blake Lively, but I don't want to get into a bidding war with Ryan Reynolds, if you know what I mean. So it's one of those things, but absolute nonsense that way. But how can you not be excited? We're talking about a guy, 34 goals, 4 assists last season. I mean, 6 goals in the Champions League, if you want to discuss his pedigree. 2 against us, didn't he? He gave our defence a right handful. Yeah. Van Dijk name-checked him as one of his, I think, top 5, top 6 opponents he's come across as well. So it's excitement all around. And it's also gone from that after the events of Paris. This sort of leaked to give a bit of an excitement. But today is really from 1:00, like, bang, we're back in the game type of thing now.
Yeah, we finally got this season's Fabinho moment. That's what we're up to now.
Yeah.
But yeah, we finally got the payment stuff. I mean, did the add-ons make it our record signing, or do we just go off the base amount? How does that work?
Yeah, it's one of those. It's not chump change, is it? 64 million down to start with, saying 12.8 million on appearances. I mean, we don't know how that's made up, and 8.5 million on team success. I suppose when you look at those figures, let's be honest. If it's successful, we want it to trigger all those add-ons, don't we? We want the team success. We want appearances. He's a young player who we've bought for a 6-year contract. So you want him to have a long-term successful career. So it's under Van Dijk at the moment, but if everything goes to plan, it becomes the record, doesn't it? And that's success, really.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, we presume, he has played on the left a bit for Benfica, but we have Diaz there, who we basically did the same with. He played well against us. We like you, get in the team. Which, it works sometimes. Sometimes it goes a bit Adam Bogdani, but it's worked recently. But we presume he'll be the number 9, which is probably our first proper number 9 since... Well, I suppose Origi signed, but he was more of a youngster. Maybe Sturridge and Suarez, unless I'm forgetting someone, or Benteke. But I forget them years for Brendan. But it's been a while since we've had a proper number 9, isn't it?
It is. It's a weird one because even I was thinking about this earlier because even with Sturridge and Suarez, I think remember like Roger said at the times they're not number 9s. They're kind of halfway between a 9 and a 10 that way. So I even thought like Torres maybe is a shout for the last. Say official number 9. Well, we've all blanked Andy Carroll from our minds, let's be honest. But literally, probably Torres, sort of a top level number 9. And listen, if he has that sort of impact, happy days.
He's got the same haircut for one of Torres' similar haircut. So
exactly, he's got the hairband. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about the wages there because what is about 100 odd grand? Is it?
Yeah, It was an interesting one because I think it's easy to say, it's a big name, so you're going to be coming on big money. But all your top journalists have sort of flagged it, Joyce and King, in their articles, just saying they've made a point of saying that's why the fee is what it is. It's the total package, the total cost at the end of the day. Almost, this could be 2 and 2 and getting 7, but there's that intimation that it's almost the same wage as the person he's probably set to replace, if that makes sense. So, it's a smart one. But plus, listen, he's a 6-year contract. It wouldn't surprise you. And hopeful, I suppose you'd say, in a way, if it goes well, it's one of those where they talk again in a few years, if that makes sense. So, happy with the wage side all round. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, the natural comparison is what Man City do. And you look there getting Haaland. Yeah. There's like 65 release clause? We'll come on to the Haaland deal properly, but 65 odd release clause, but he's rumoured to be getting 350 grand a week, and that's Man City. That's Man City wages where there's a bid in the background, to put it politely. Yeah. So it's a bit more money in the signing, but the entire package will probably be a lot cheaper. I'm sure there's many people who've done the maths on Twitter, but it's a great deal for us considering who he's seemingly replacing. Anything to add on the Darwin one before we move on to the person he's replacing?
No, I think we're all just excited to see that happen. And interestingly enough, it could be his debut on. I think someone flagged it as the 12th of July that we play United in. I think it's Bangkok or Singapore pre-season. I suppose the only other thing to flag is. You don't know something on a negative or a doomsday type of thing, but it's just got to be said. He has had 3 serious knee injuries throughout his career at such a young age. Yeah. So it will be interesting in regards to the medical side, as in what checks they do, how they look at it. It doesn't mean, anything bad is necessarily going to happen, but it won't surprise me if they do their due diligence very well, shall we say.
Yeah, you'd think if we've committed whatever, but 100 million euros in the entire package, you'd think if he's had these free, maybe we wouldn't have went into the negotiating at all if we didn't think it was worth a risk. Because if the medical says there's a little doubt, we'll probably take the gamble at this stage. But unless it's like completely whatever, hopefully not an issue. But we'll move on to Is sad the right word? Because it's always sad when a legend's seemingly going, but it almost feels like it's also the right time for him to go. And that is Sadio Mane. I mean, the story so far has been a bit odd, because it did start before the Champions League final, which was probably the most annoying bit, but the Bayern links are still going and the deal's still progressing, seemingly.
Yeah, I think it's all right to say sad, to be honest. I mean, first things first, like you said, he's a legend. He's an absolute legend, an icon at this club, and he's done brilliant things in his time here. I think I want to carefully phrase this. The way it was done, I mean, we'd all been talking about Salah, hadn't we, contract renewal-wise?
Yeah.
We were all waiting for Mane to be done in the summer, or that's what we were told. And then there was that sort of interview that, I'm going to give you big news after the Champions League final. It kind of came from nowhere. And then the murmuring start around Bayern, they're really keen. And you were almost thinking, is this just a bit of a spoof? Is this just even an agent tactic, realistically? But then, as time's gone on, it's become clear that no, this has, been happening for a while. Bayern wanted him. Liverpool had wanted to talk about renewing with 12 months left, but it clearly looks like that was never going to happen. Also, I think that this isn't putting a negative on Mane, but we need to be factual with this. This is the third time he's asked Liverpool to go. I mean, Chris Williams, who's a well-known journalist, he said that, and he stated the facts on Twitter, and he got absolute pelters, but it is factual. Circumstances have just dictated this looks like the time it's going to happen. So it brings it all to the scenario it is today. Liverpool have quite clearly said, they've leaked it to all the well-known sources. Listen, if you want to get him, it's $2.5 million. That's what brings us to the table. So then you go through the games, don't you? So Bayern put a first bid in, which is, I don't even think lowball's the right word for the first bid. Like
a deflated ball, I think.
Chump change. I don't even know what you'd call it. But
a knife by the neighbour ball, I think.
Yeah, it's just, to be honest, it's kind of insulting to two big clubs, isn't it? It's like, okay, are we going to talk seriously? So then a second one goes in, and it's not a serious bid, really. It's up to 30 million, as we know, but some of the add-ons that obviously are being quoted, add-ons that are triggered if Mane wins 3 Ballon d'Ors, like Christ almighty, just nonsense stuff. I suppose the biggest thing that could be wrong on this, but I have the feeling of, it feels like revenge for Thiago. So not last summer, summer before, wasn't it? You think about Thiago to Liverpool, the rumours galore, and then Rummenigge comes out from Bayern saying, well, Liverpool haven't contacted us, but everyone seems to know, but the Bayern board type of thing. So I've just got that feeling deep down that it is a bit of revenge, as in like, a bit small fry, but, we'll play these games a little bit. However, at the same time, Bayern have got previous for this. If you look at like the things they do with other bids, the Sané contract, Sané told them, this is what I want from the renewal. And they just made 4 bids and he just kept saying, no, no, no. And finally, they offered him what he wanted. Now, I might be wrong on this, and time will tell. I think we're going to find out really, really quickly. I don't think we'll necessarily get 42.5 million for Mane. However, I wouldn't be surprised if we got around the money that we paid for him, 36 million from Southampton. Something like that tells me, it gets the deal done. I actually think, if prediction-wise, I won't be surprised if it's not already done, if it's set to get done shortly, because the two clubs are obviously talking, but something around his previous fee from Southampton gets it done. And listen, it's probably going to get done. He goes to a new challenge as he wants. He leaves a legend. You can't ask any more than Sadio Mane than what he's done. So it's sad in a way, but should still be celebrated. There shouldn't be any negativity towards him. If he wants to move on, fair play. He doesn't owe us anything. And we just crack on with Darwin.
Yeah, we absolutely do. I do agree. I think if it's in the ballpark of 35 with add-ons that don't require winning Eurovision and other things, I think that's pretty much spot on. I think people always say the Hazard deal from a good few years ago, but the whole stratosphere of football was completely different then. I think Hazard was a smidge younger, and Real Madrid had stupid money then, and Bayern, albeit done a few stupid things in recent times, I mean, completely destroying their wage bill, but they were never going to go above and beyond for a 30-year-old Mane. But I like the fact that they were annoyed about the price and then went, well, you want 40-odd mil you want 50-odd mil for Lewandowski, so we're kind of being fair here.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the sort of comparison. They try and spin it one way for what we did for Thiago, but exactly as you said, look at what you're asking for Lewandowski. So it works two ways. I do think, truth be told, if we would speak again in a week, I think it'll be done. I really do. I don't think Liverpool want to drag it out. I'm not really convinced Bayern particularly want to drag it out too far. Liverpool are serious operators, but Bayern are European royalty, no matter what anyone says. So I think this will get done quite quickly, personally.
Yeah, I think we just want to get Darwin announced, got the happy moment, get all your social media interactions, and then it's fine, get the news out, and then find fitting tributes for Mane. Because as you said, he is a club legend. Literally, was he Klopp's second signing, not counting Grujic? I think it was Ginny and Mane the first season, wasn't he? So, yeah, he's clearly one of Liverpool's, certainly most important, but definitely one of Liverpool's best in recent history. So, yeah, we need to find a fitting send-off. We had the parade as well. So, yeah, it get the good news out the way with Darwin, and then a serious goodbye to a legend.
Yeah, exactly.
Moving on to other Liverpool moves, and starting off with Calvin Ramsey, which has kind of been happening quietly in the background with the Darwin stuff going on. It seems to be progressing all the time. We don't really get the big blow-up news because everyone's focused on Darwin, but it seems to certainly be close.
Yeah, it's almost been like a paragraph in between the big articles for all the other players, but Joyce confirmed it, didn't he, that Liverpool are in talks with Aberdeen because he's a right back, so Scottish Young Player of the Year. So the initial offer seemed to be $4 million up front with up to $2 million in add-ons. Again, it's trying to phrase it carefully. This is not big money for Liverpool, but it's huge money for Aberdeen in relative standards. So you kind of get the feeling that this one will get done. If Aberdeen want a bit more, it's not going to be a huge amount, but it suits us all round. It's backup right backs, a position we've been, talking about needing cover for a while. I know Joe Gomez has almost been seen as the backup, if you want to call it that, but he's not a natural right back. So we're looking at a youngster who's got those attacking capabilities, those crossing capabilities of some extent, similar to Trent. So it seems we've made up our mind a long time ago that this is the kid we want. We'll bring him along slowly. And again, I would be astonished if within a week or so he's not a Liverpool player. The only reason I think it doesn't happen is just some sort of silly greed on Aberdeen or the players' part, realistically.
Yeah, and I think it is. I think that's Aberdeen's biggest sale. I'm sure I read that the other day, and that it's for an 18-year-old right back who I think he's only just broken into their team. If I'm read that correctly all over Twitter. So yeah, to lose a youngster who's obviously hugely talented, but a record sale for a teenage fullback, it's crazy money. But yeah, that should get done. Moving on then to someone who's had probably his best season, not making an impact in the Premier League. I think he had the odd goal in the Premier League, but player of the domestic cups, and that's Taki Minamino, who, to be fair, a bit up and down at Liverpool, but this last season has been great, and now's probably the right time for him to move on and for us to cash in on, and that seems to be where it's heading.
Yeah, it's got all the feeling of a goodwill story all around. Like, clearly a nice guy, liked by everyone. And let's be honest, in the last sort of, say, season to 6 months, been absolutely immense for us. I think his minutes per goal ratio might even be the best of the club this season.
101 minutes, I think. I did a pod a minute ago, and we discussed him there. So yeah,
yeah, and he's fitted in. Maybe the shame is he started to finally look at home at Liverpool. I'd say realistically, but for the interest of Liverpool and for the interests of Taki Minamino as well, it's the right time to move on. He's better than a fifth, sixth choice forward, whatever you want to label him. And it's quite telling that there's up to 6 clubs with offers on the table at the moment. We're looking at ranging up to 20 million, a bit lower for some. I think he will make the decision realistically, because there's Premiership clubs. If he wants to stay in this league, he has those options. But there's quite a few from different countries. I think the 2 biggest ones that have been flagged so far are Monaco have come in. They've obviously got the Tchouaméni money. And Lazio. Lazio's quite interesting for him in regards to being in European competition. And they've also got a Japanese kit sponsor there as well. So that's been linked to prompting their interest. I think, though, this sounds horrible to say, but the good thing is they'll be looking at that chunk of money and going, that's the first down payment or instalment on Nunez, realistically. But you can't not love Taki Minamino after what he's done this season. So he gets a good fee for a guy who came in for $7.5 million, I think, initially.
Yeah.
Moves on with goodwill. Goes, you can't say legend because you're classing Mane as a legend, but I think he's a cult hero. I think it's fair to say after the Cup success, he goes as a cult hero.
Yeah.
Well-liked guy. Happy move for everyone, realistically.
Yeah, absolutely. There's another player who played well against us and we signed, so it keeps that record strong. Next up, we have Nico Williams, who a bit up and down at Liverpool. I mean, fan reaction to him sometimes was stupidly strong, but he did move to Fulham on loan, and he seemingly did really well. And there seems to be a couple promoted teams battling out for him. Fulham obviously won, but I think Nottingham Forest were named today as well. They've got to replace Jed Spence, who's seemingly Spurs bound.
Yeah.
So yeah, it looks like we could get a couple promoted teams bidding. I think it's rumoured about 10 to 15 million for him.
Yeah, speaking to sort of same people that Eddie's been speaking to recently, there's quite a few offers for Nico on the table, and everyone wants this move to happen. Nico especially, because the World Cup's coming up, for Wales, so he needs to be playing first team football. He's not going to get in ahead of Trent. Calvin Ramsey's looking to come in, so it's a move that makes sense all around. With that, the suggestion is there's up to 5 offers on the table.
Dear.
I actually think it'll be where Nico picks, because I think they'll all come in around the sort of same as you said, up to the 12 to 15 million bracket. It'll be up to Nico because he's got the option of staying with Fulham. He could argue he's settled there, but this is without knowing what goes on in his head. They are promoted, so do they struggle? How does that work for him? Forest seems a bit of a gamble that way as well. It's a brand new. They've got a lot of work to do if they're going to stay up, haven't they? Forest, realistically, so it'll be interesting. It'll come down to Nico himself to make the call, but yeah, he's leaving. Happy days for him. His World Cup dream probably means more to him than his club dream at the moment. So we get a good fee. Everyone moves on.
Yeah, I think it depends, because he might have liked London. He might be one of them who doesn't like London, but Forest, historic club. So yeah, there's a lot to decide there. And also formation and stuff. I think Forest play a back 3, if I remember correctly. So similarly to Words guy, Wales. So yeah, a lot of factors there, but seemingly off. And everyone will wish him well, because we got money for him and he came from the academy. Moving on then to done deals across Europe, we have to start off on kind of a sad one, and it's Tchouaméni, who was name-checked by Ornstein halfway through last season, which is normally the green light of, well, pencil him in, he's joining, but thank you, Mbappe, you kind of screwed us there. But he's gone to Real Madrid, and it's seemingly mega money, which, considering the other business we need to do, we were never going to compete with, and he had his heart set on Real Madrid.
Yeah, it was quite clear, as you said, Ornstein, others, that at one stage it was between us and Real. The biggest factor in the past was, as you said, Mbappe, because Madrid were committed to that. So it looked like, he was our focus. We were going to steal him then. The suggestion seemed to be that we pretty much had a deal tied up. I think the biggest thing to say on this, it looked like we had a deal tied up in terms of fee and wages agreed
Ugh.
for pretty much half of what it's gone to now, realistically. So, yeah, that's the biggest thing, that the Mbappe money is just sitting there, in Florentino Perez's pocket. So they make this call to go with him. I think as they confirmed, 80 million euros with 20 in add-ons. 10, it's interesting the way they've confirmed it. 10 are very realistic, 10 are very challenging, as in the challenging ones being things, again, don't know if it's a key weird theme at the moment, but Ballon d'Or, things like that, realistically. But even at 90 million euros, there's no way Liverpool are getting involved for a youngster like that. The downside is you're talking about a guy who many see as a sort of generational midfield talent.
Yeah.
And you look at Real Madrid's midfielder now. I mean, people like Isolde, it's like you've got to look at the entirety of it. Yes, there's Cruz, Modric, Casemiro, the experience, but look at the next generation they've got coming through with Camavinga, him, Valverde. I think you've got to say they've got the best midfield in Europe, realistically. So it's not to be, and you understand why at that price. But yeah, there's a little tinge of sadness that we didn't get that one done.
Yeah, it is mad. About 50 mil were we agreed with?
Yeah, around that figure, aye.
Ugh, sad, but it's almost nice to know that we have that money set on a midfielder, unless it's all gone into the Darwin deal, but I don't think we do stuff like that. But yeah, it's nice to know we have money for a midfielder, which we can maybe speculate on at the end or something like that. Yeah, but we'll move across to a couple other deals. Rudiger to Real Madrid, we've noted down here, see how good he actually is, but I mean, you look at Real Madrid, Alaba and Militao aren't exactly the big name centre-backs, but you look at, they had a mad record in Europe, but they won La Liga.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be breaking them two up for someone like Rudiger, because it's a gamble, that huge money, but he's always played in a back three when he's played well. It just seems an odd move to me.
Yeah, it is a weird one. I think you phrased that right. We are going to see how good he is, because he got in the PFA Team of the Year, so his peers are obviously flagging him as that good. But I think, as you said, he plays in a back three at Chelsea. He also plays with the likes of Kovacic and Kante in front of him. Yeah. So I'm not going to be funny. If they were protecting me, I reckon I'd be worth 15 million by the end of the game, realistically. So, you have to balance that out. So he's going to be playing in a back four, different system. So we are going to see how good he is realistically. I actually think that, is he better than those two? If you were to say, could you improve Real Madrid, the centre of defence would have been probably the first area that you'd look at.
Maybe Alaba goes back to left back or something like that.
Yeah, that's the other option as well, realistically. So I could see him sort of being on rotation. I think the biggest thing as to why he's got his move is a free. Let's be honest. I don't think people will be spending, 40, 50 million on a Rudiger, but he's on a free. Mm-hmm. So Real Madrid are probably looking at that thinking, I'm sure he's got a cushy wage, a decent signing on fee, but essentially a free transfer. But we will find out very quickly just how good he is.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be interesting to see, but I mean, I suppose La Liga's kind of a bit dead, but we'll come on to the Barcelona situation in a few minutes. Last deal we want to talk, we kind of discussed it in passing now, was Haaland and the big package that financially it is. But Man City, they've not played with a striker since Aguero before his big injury problems, probably in his last season. But Haaland's completely new because Aguero was small, he could link play and other stuff, whereas Haaland, not a target man because that'd be lazy, but he is a completely different physical powerhouse of a forward.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think Aguero's the obvious comparison, and even under Pep, you saw him saying, Aguero's not getting the team because he needs to sort of press more, work harder, and he did respond to that back in the day, Aguero. But this, as you said, it's almost going from that false nine system, as you call it, with City, to a literal number 9. Like you said, not just a target man, because the boy's got quality. Let's not pretend he's got a bit of everything. But it is a massive sea change for City that way. I suppose the interesting thing would be to ask sort of those two teams, Klopp and Pep, why two big strikers, if that makes sense, in Haaland or Nunez? What are you seeing that we're not seeing necessarily that's changing your style completely? But listen, the deal's all done. I think the interesting thing that I find is when people are saying, oh, look, they've spent more on Nunez than we have on Haaland, but just ignoring the big fat fee that went to Alf-Inge Haaland, his dad, ignoring the fee that went to the agency, Mino Raiola's former agency, if you want to call it that. And, as you said, the talks that the wages are northwards of 350 grand a week. So, all in all, the total value of the package is very, very different. So, there's a lot of pressure on Haaland to perform. Unfortunately, if someone said to me, do you think he will perform? I would say yes. I think he will get chances galore at City. But it's still a big change in their system. So, it'll be interesting to see how they respond as a team to it at the same time.
Yeah, I think almost the more interesting thing is the knock-on effect of the players around it, because they've got a lot of money sewn up in Jack Grealish, who was struggling to be a starter anyway, but this probably moves Phil Foden to left wing, let's be honest.
Yeah, probably.
He's going to take priority there. And right wing, it's been a mix of Mahrez, Bernardo Silva, etc. They obviously got the Alvarez kid in January. So and Bernardo Silva's been linked with Barcelona, as is every player in the world. So it's going to be an interesting summer of City. But yeah, I think Haaland is almost a guaranteed thing. But the knock-on effect of him is going to be interesting on the other players.
Yeah, I think probably if you're looking at them, this is speculate a little bit, but hey, it's a transfer show. I'd probably think that it's a bit of a death knell for Raheem Sterling there, in all honesty. When I look at who's playing, he was already starting to move towards the bench. Now with Haaland coming in, like you said, Grealish is more recent. I'm struggling to see Sterling getting the game time that he expects or he wants. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about him moving on somewhere by the end of the window.
Yeah, he's been linked with, I think he's an Arsenal or a Chelsea fan. I think he was linked to one of them, but
yeah,
it wouldn't surprise me if he moves to one of the London clubs. But Real Madrid need an Mbappe alternative. Could be someone like him.
It's well possible. It wouldn't surprise you if Sterling fancies a shot abroad. It's the one thing he's not done.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sterling, Benzema, Vinicius front three sounds fun.
Yeah,
I've always thought he was better on the right as well, so I think that'd suit all of them. But anywho, we will move on to big club drama. We mentioned Barcelona slightly there, and we're kind of involved because we've been slightly linked to Gavi. We don't no idea how serious it is, but the talent's there. We'd be stupid not to be involved or asking questions, but Barcelona are screwed. They've signed all these more players on a free. We know the drama from last season, which lost them Messi, but they've got to re-sign Gavi, Sergio Roberto, Kessie, Christensen, and all the other people they want to sign. But finances, they're trying to sell everything from car parks to offices to season to tickets to weddings, everything. So the Barcelona situation it's fun as an outsider, but it's actually just interesting how much a club can screw up their finances.
It's the insane side of football. We'll touch on Gavi first, and then we'll almost go through the Barcelona dynasty drama that's going on. I mean, Gavi, like I say, he's a generational talent. Are we interested? Yeah, absolutely. We have talked to his agent. We've absolutely, said we're prepared to pay this. Realistically, though, we do understand probably phrase it this way, being used a little bit. In the sense of, we know he wants to really renew with Barcelona. It's now a sort of chess game, realistically. But the smart money says Gavi does renew for a new contract and stays there. But you've got to put yourself in these situations. And if there's any chance we can get him, you've got to do everything you can. So it is what it is a little. But the smart money says Gavi renews. Finance-wise, dear God, Barcelona, it's amazing that this is still going on after all this time under Laporta, but it just advances now all the time. And this week, actually, it's important to flag the 16th is a huge date for Barcelona, sort of going in chronological order. I mean, the finances are a mess. As you said, they can't register Kessie, they can't register Christensen, free transfers for God's sake. Sergio Roberto, they did an extension for him. It had to be a 1-year extension because that's the most that they could be allowed realistically. Absolutely crazy. Laporta actually said in his address to the board and to the shareholders literally last week, the club was almost dead this month unless they're going to agree certain proposals. So to summarise it in simple terms, there's a huge, huge vote on the 16th in a few days. Absolutely massive. Laporta's put or tabled 2 motions before the board with an aim to raise €740 million. Now, as he said, they need to agree both proposals if Barcelona's not only going to A, survive, but B, move forward from the mess. So both motions relate to TV rights and the sale of merchandise. So I know there's been all this thing recently that you can get married on the pitch, can't you? And you can play five-a-side. And if you pay enough money, you can play laser tag with Pedri and Gavi and all this type of thing that's been going on. But these are actually huge. So it's actually selling TV rights and the rights to merchandise as well. So even with the merchandise, it's literally 49.9% that that the motion is to sell, with the option of them buying it back down the line, but that's not definite. And the other big thing that's come up is Goldman Sachs. They've been in bed with Goldman Sachs for a while now, but they're going to finance them to a tune of a further €270 million. So it's interesting. It's like I'd be surprised if the motions didn't pass. This is obviously not inside knowledge. We'll have to see, just because of the situation is where it is. Barcelona having to almost sell the bits they didn't want to, but when you're in this bad a situation, what choice have you honestly got? I think the reason we're talking about it in terms of finances is because of the transfer impact it has, just to bring it back to topic. Frankie de Jong, well known, United are in. Yeah. So a lot of people might be thinking, well, hold on, what's that got to do with it? Well, a lot of these motions are still going to take time to come through. And the big thing about Spain is a lot of your finances have to be all levelled out account-wise by the 30th of June. So it's probably unlikely that Barcelona are going to naturally be able to get all these sales done before the 30th of June. So that's the big talk about de Jong, to United. So if it starts to get towards the 30th of June, be an interesting one to keep an eye on. Never mind what's going to happen this week to start with. And then the other big thing about Barcelona, Lewandowski. I mean, it's quite clear. It's been leaked everywhere, isn't it? He's their first choice. He wants to go there. He's been assassinating Bayern, for want of a better phrase, hasn't he, in the press? That's well and truly, a bitter divorce heading there, realistically. So he wants out. They want him. Again, it's despite his age, it's not going to be chump change. But if Barcelona are going to have any sort of activity in the transfer window that they want, these 2 motions are going to have to get passed, and then it will probably see a big chain of events that way.
They are just an very, very odd team, because they finally got back on the feet after Koeman with Xavi and stuff, but it all seemed to stem from the youngsters taking precedent. I know they got Aubameyang, Adama and all that.
Yeah.
But why would you commit to Lewandowski? I think 34 now. It just makes no sense. Because you just got Aubameyang, who's that? It's just really odd.
It's the one thing is, it's again like you say, you get it, and I'm trying to rationalise it. Is it okay? Get Lewandowski around, Pedri, Gavi, showing these right things maybe, but committing that sort of money on a player that age. I mean, listen, a world-class striker. Let's have that absolutely on the record. Absolutely top-class finishing, no doubts about that. But it just seems, when money seems to be that precious or needs to be smart, that it could be better spent maybe. But hey, we don't make these calls. But I think it's also linked to that transfer merry-go-round, as in they can get Lewandowski and they get money in Bayern for Mane. That links to us and Nunez. So, yeah, a lot of things there, but it is absolutely crazy times at Barcelona even.
It's almost crazy at Bayern, but not that crazy. But there is another European... Is giant the right word for PSG? modern giant, let's go with, to be kind. Sporting director Kylian Mbappe has seemingly got rid of Pochettino. We know they're getting an actual sporting director in, I think it's Luis Campos. But Pochettino, who is so highly thought of in this country, as soon as he's been at PSG, you hear journalists, I'm sure people listen to Julian Laurent on many different shows, he can't stand Pochettino's football and stuff like that. But manager's gone. Zidane's obviously the linked one all the time, but God knows if that'll be confirmed. But PSG's a mess as well.
I think PSG is just the ultimate mess of how not to run a football club, so to speak. That how many good, top-class managers have been to PSG. You think like Ancelotti, even if you go a bit lower like Emery, they all get fired and everyone looks at the manager. It's like, it's nothing to do with the manager. It's to do with the setup of the club. Like you said, Mbappe, just obscene wages, an obscene deal. The power a 23-year-old now wields at a club like that is just unbelievable. Looks like, as you said, Zidane's going in there now, so we'll see how he does realistically. Luis Campos' advisor, so Leonardo is moved out, interestingly, with absolutely no press release, no sort of messages there, but to be honest, by the sounds of it, I'd probably quite happily just keep my mouth shut and walk out for the 12 million or so he's getting. So that makes sense. I think the biggest thing that's interesting me is Luis Campos. Is he going to advise players? And is that to the manager? Or is he going to advise players and then Mbappe goes, nah, I don't fancy him, we're not going to get him type of thing? It's utterly bizarre, the setup that way. The interesting one that is now in the fray is they have now spoken to Lewandowski. So Lewandowski's preferred option is clearly Barcelona as it stands. But if he does want to get one last pension top-up, if you call it that, PSG are very ready and willing to put that in place. But from a transfer perspective, they're going to move. They are going to move really hard now as well. So it'll be interesting to see who Mbappe approves, shall we say, and go from there.
I think Liverpool just need to sign everyone in PSG's as under 23s by the sounds of it, because they will never get a chance at playing football for PSG. But it's worked.
You look at who they've let go, like Nkunku and players like that. It's just insane. But yeah, PSG will do everything they can to chase a Champions League, and yet everyone from the outside can see they're doing everything wrong. But hey ho, let it continue.
Yeah, none of that defenders or midfielder stuff. Let's get a striker. That'll fix the problem. But yeah, bit of a mess. But hey ho. Moving on, a quick fire round here. I mean, we've got some Premier League deals. I mean, one's a club, but Newcastle is just pure transfer drama. Let's start with them.
Yeah.
I mean, one of them PSG let goers is Moussa Diaby, who's linked with them for big money. But Newcastle, they're going to be spending a lot of money on a variety of players this summer.
Yeah, two big things really for Newcastle is they've got Dan Ashworth in there as a football advisor, so they managed to get him out of Brighton eventually. It was always going to happen, but so that would indicate a strategy, shall we say. I think the other biggest thing is that they had their sponsorship, but they bought that out. Astonishing. A club that's actually bought out, as in paid a penalty fee to get out their sponsorship contract. So it wouldn't surprise you at all if insert random Saudi company all of a sudden becomes sponsors of Newcastle's kit for a record fee, etc. So it can all go towards their transfer pot. But they will be active. The biggest thing for Newcastle is, will they try and do a Man City and try and jump levels before? If they're smart, they will look to build slowly. However, they could well try a City and try and get players like Robinho, other Brazilians. Let's be honest, it never ends well. But it's whether they're smart and they go for the likes of Botman, it's been mentioned, so I think that's realistic. Yeah. I think they're close to, I might be wrong with my pronunciation of this, but Ekitike, I think it is, from Reims, the player as well. So it's quite clear young talents on the agenda, maybe for Ashworth, but Newcastle will be very active. Also a prediction there, I suspect one of two players who they're in talks with in Dominic Calvert-Lewin or James Ward-Prowse will be going there as well.
No, that's interesting. Ward-Prowse, I don't think that's what they need in midfield, to be fair, but that would be interesting. It'd be a lot of money, I presume. But a lot of money will be spent in Newcastle.
Yeah.
James Tarkowski, you'd probably think would have set his own sights higher, but he's seemingly on the verge of signing for Everton.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. When you look at it, when you've just been relegated and you've been one of the centre-backs at a team, you'd think, well, he's going to do well to get a move. But there's a lot of things on the table for Tarkowski. You know, he's homegrown, so he's got that advantage as well. He is a decent, I'll use that word, defender. Everton, God, Everton's defence is terrible. If you look at who they've got at the back, realistically, is he an upgrade on the likes of Michael Keane? Yes. Mason Holgate? Christ, yes. So it is a move that could make sense for all parties on a free. Like you said, I'm surprised he's maybe not set his sights a bit higher, possibly, but I think he'd play every week there. So it is maybe a move that makes sense in that regard.
I mean, Burnley replaced Michael Keane with James Tarkowski. Why can't Everton do the same?
Yeah, exactly. Similar levels, you could argue, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on, Jules Koundé, again, one of the more highly thought of younger centre-backs in the world. Chelsea links just don't go away. They're probably stemming over from last season, but I think he does have a release clause. I can't remember what it is, but that's probably going to be Chelsea's first new big signing under the new ownership by the looks of it.
Yeah, for Chelsea, this isn't even improves the team. This is needed to try and get back on an even keel. You're talking about a team that's just lost Rudiger and Christensen on a free, two of their three centre-backs, realistically. Marcus Alonso also wanting out, linked with Barcelona, spookily enough, we were talking about earlier. As for Laqueta, getting another year older. So this is one that they tried to get done last window, but ran out of time, or last summer window, I should say, but ran out of time. So it's something that the player wants. It's something that Chelsea need. I would say be astonished if this one doesn't get done.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely see him in the Premier League one way or the other. Someone else I think will be in the Premier League, unless PSG fancy another crack at an expensive player, it is Ousmane Dembele. I mean, he's been linked mostly with Chelsea. I've seen the odd link to Liverpool. United have been linked more so last summer from memory, but Ousmane Dembele is probably another one we'll see in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think if it's going to be in the Premier League, like you say, it's going to be Chelsea or PSG. Chelsea, this is a playboy type, so London would suit him in that regard. Chelsea's attack needs, again, a full revamp. Lukaku clearly wants out. Werner's not good enough. We've even heard the likes of Ziyech, Pulisic, all these players are up for sale, so that attack needs a full revamp. People say, he's on a free, but we know what this means. He'll get a huge lump sum either way. He'll get huge wages, so the way you define a free might need to be looked at. But two clubs for Dembele, PSG or Chelsea, if it's going to be the Premier League.
I'm still tempted by it, to be honest, but
no.
I love a gamble, Dave. You can't go wrong. But I don't think, maybe if the wage demands weren't mental, Klopp was a fan of him, wasn't he? But yeah, I think that sale's shipped. I said that wrong. Ship sale, Jesus. Last one then on this quickfire one, and this kind of broke yesterday, is Richarlison to Spurs. And yeah, you hear that and you think that can make sense. And then you hear £60 million and you're like, oh no, not Spurs. What are you doing? But yeah, that money's ludicrous for me.
When you saw that fee, it's like, if you're going to pay Richarlison or that money for Richarlison, you should look at what Tom Daly's doing, because you're probably getting for a fraction of the price, realistically. Spurs have announced they've got money. So they announced at the sort of pre-season that, they're going to make an investment into the club through ENIC, tune of up to 150 million. And they left it kind of ambiguous in the statement as to how that's going to be spent. But we always kind of thought, let's be honest, transfers. And since then, Spurs have been linked to a good few, like centre-backs predominantly, like Bastoni being the main one. This one, though, just came out of nowhere. You're thinking, Son, Kane and Richarlison. It's just a bit of an odd combination. Like, Son's obviously seen as a nice, popular guy. The other two are just vile. I mean, let's be honest. No one's a fan of Richarlison, but...
Might as well get Pickford as well.
Yeah, exactly. If Everton could genuinely get that price for Richarlison after his return in the last few seasons, they should drive him there themselves, get him on that plane, get him to that deal as quickly as possible, because he's just not worth that. That being said, I think Conte is a top manager. His record bears that out. So if anyone can get anything out of him, it is him. But God, no, he's a vile character, and I don't think he's that good a player. So someone with he's one of those ones that it's a Brazilian international who would fit in at Burnley. But yeah, if Spurs are willing to pay that on it, mental.
I think he's good backup for Son and Kane because they want one player to do both jobs. But 60 mil for a backup, because he's not better than Kulusevski. It's crazy.
He's not. I really didn't understand that. I was like, I've not heard any talk. I don't know enough about this. I won't pretend. But whether that's going to be made permanent, but the Swedish boy came in and he's done well. You know, I thought that would be an obvious.
I think they've got another year of loan, and then they have to pay it. I think.
Yeah, it just. Do I think Richarlison's better than him? I think he's probably about the same level, if not, but
certainly more suited to the right as well. It's very odd.
It's the one that you're kind of thinking, hey, when you've heard it, but there's no smoke without fire, but we shall see on that one.
Yeah, and that's it for what we've got noted in the agenda. Just to finish, I mean, a bit of speculation here, but Liverpool, we've kind of planned out their week in the first segment now. Get Darwin done, maybe say goodbye to Sadio, and then them smaller deals done. But speculate, is it the midfielder next?
Yeah, I think next, no.
After Ramsey.
I think you'll see a lot of outgoings and other dealing, shall we say, with Liverpool. But I also suspect that there's one more incoming, if you want to call it big incoming, after Nunez. So I think it will be a midfielder. I think there's been a lot of names out there. Bellingham won't go away. Sangare from PSV even, sorry. I think Bissouma gets mentioned, but I'm struggling to see. I like him a lot, and I like him at the price with a year left, but I'm struggling to see how we're going to go back in for a player that didn't give us the warmest welcome last time when we tried. Bellingham is the interesting one. I think you're going to hear this throughout the summer. Now, I know everyone's going to say, Bellingham, it's quite clear he's not going to move until next summer. Now, that is entirely possible. However, you look at the deal we've done with someone like Keita, when we said, let's buy him now for a bit of a premium, you keep him for a year. We have had those type of talks with Dortmund. However, Dortmund are in a very strong position here. It's an interesting one for Liverpool, because if you look at these sort of young generational midfielders where we're shopping, Camavinga's gone, Gravenberch is now gone to Bayern. I think they've got an absolute steal there for the price they've got him for realistically. So Bellingham is the one that everyone knows we like. He's a generational talent that way. If it's left till next summer, he's going to come towards a bidding auction, I think, unfortunately. Man City will be there as well, Chelsea. That does make things very difficult for us that way. So, prediction-wise, I wouldn't be surprised if you hear a fair bit more rumbling on with the Jude Bellingham situation. However, if that doesn't happen, which I think there is little chance of it happening, Liverpool, I would be absolutely astonished if we've not signed another, let's call it a first-team squad midfielder by the end of the window.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. But that is the end of the first episode of the Transfer Roundup for this summer. As I said in the intro, hopefully Trev's back by, I'm not sure when we're planning to do these, hopefully next weekend or when we get more news or something like that. But hopefully Trev's back for the next one. Eddie was planned to be it, but I ended up being the third choice host. But there we are. Good sub to have. But thank you, Dave. We'll be back soon. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.